But I was so focused on the net profit of the company that you end up sacrificing a lot of things to focus on the net profit. And you think that, well, values are based on the net profit, so if I just raise the net profit, the value will go up, and it's the exact opposite.
All right, hey, thanks everybody for checking out our new podcast, Bourbon with the Banker. I'm your host, Eric Selden, aka Selden Smart, on the social media thing. Today I have with me none other than the owners and controller for Sky Heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical. Yes. Gosh, that's a mouthful to say these days, but love what you guys are doing. Got here Travis Smith and Heather Bargender with me. Hopefully I pronounced that right, because I always mess that one up. So, but yeah, great for having you guys today. We are in the lovely northwest of Portland, Oregon, and I just wanted to get together with these guys and share a little beverage and talk a little bit about business, wealth, and finance. So before we get started, I wanted to kind of give you guys just a quick highlight of who we're dealing with. These guys are rock stars. You may not know unless you've been paying attention online, on the radio, on television. Probably seen their vans all across. You can't really miss them. But Sky Heating, been in business since 1979, serving the Oregon and Southwest Washington market. Travis got started with the company just about at birth. He's been in the industry for over 20 years and has held positions as far as installer from multiple roles, throughout the company, until becoming owner and president, I believe in 2014. So a long time, a lot of experience here. And then Heather, joined Sky. Has it been about 3 years now? Six. Gosh, it's been such a long time, man. Time really does fly, especially when you deduct those COVID years, right? So, yes. The company's been outstanding, like I said. Back in 2015, one of the best places to work in the heating contractor business in the Western region by ACHR. Travis has also received the award for the top 40 under 40 in the HVAC industry and has served on the board for the Oregon Air Conditioning Contractors of America, Home Builders Association, Home Performance Council, Water Furnace Dealer Council, and is an advisor for the Air Conditioning, Heating, Refrigeration News. And in addition to all that, he still finds time to be a high-thrill, high-performance driving instructor and is now also looking at getting a pilot's license. I don't know where to begin, but I know we're definitely going to touch on that for sure. So with that being said,
I do have to introduce Heather a little bit there too, because
yes, please.
She recently was awarded top females in the HVAC industry. They selected 20 females that were working in HVAC well over 400, and I think it was 440 applicants. And she was the finalist of the top 20 there, which is amazing. So it really goes to show what she's been accomplishing for HVAC, which is mostly a male-dominated trade, and we're working on fixing that and making it a little bit more even there.
Awesome. Well, cheers to that. Congratulations. Yes, I definitely didn't do that justice, so I appreciate that, Travis.
That's all my fault. That's on me.
Well, awesome. So before we dive into the business, we definitely want to talk about what we're drinking today. So today we've got the Whistle Pig 15 Kentucky Straight Rye. This one is a little bit unique as it is a single barrel select, selected by the Multnomah Whiskey Library here in Portland. So you won't find this one in every liquor store. So it'll be a little bit of a treat today to text this one out. This one retails for about $2.50, and we've already got our pours here. So why don't we dive in and see what this what's all about? I gotta say, I like it. But what do you guys think when you first take a little sniff of that? What are you guys smelling?
I'm just gonna go with a standard kind of a caramel and a little bit of a butterscotch to me.
Yeah, and a little bit of chocolate too.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely get some of that caramel, maybe a little vanilla, but yeah, no, it's pretty good. What do you guys think about the taste? Yeah.
One of the things that it's always hard for me to be first on the taste. I'll try. I'll let Heather go. Because I love the power of suggestion.
Yeah.
And when it comes to tasting things, I'll sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I taste the cherry. So we both like red wine, and she kind of got me into red wine. And when they give you those tasting notes, man, it sure does help.
Oh yeah.
So this is like my first time not reading a tasting note and trying to come up with one on my own. So if I'm like, oh, it tastes like something weird, that's yeah.
Yeah. It's like they throw out something like, oh, it's fire hydrant hoses or something, and like something just strange or like
wet rock.
Exactly.
Whetstone.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's like
that was probably one of the craziest wine tasting notes that we read.
I see it all the time now.
Hints of whetstone.
What is a whetstone?
Yeah, it's crazy. I watched a thing, I think it was on Sommeliers on Netflix, and the guy was describing something that tasted like a wet tennis ball. And I'm like, do you guys just go around tasting all of these things? Like, where do you come up with
tennis ball?
Yeah, like, like this is crazy. They're crazy.
They might have read a little too much Harry Potter, because I played with like the birdies or something, whatever, every flavor bean. But I'm actually reading my son the Harry Potter book right now.
Yeah.
So it's the picture book. It's got color illustrations, and we just went through where he's in the train, and he has all of his gold newts and shazoos or whatever they call them in Harry Potter land, and he buys the entire cart of everything. And the guy's like, "Oh, you better watch out for the beans. Some taste like booger flavor, and you might get this other one." And yeah, maybe that's what they do. They just read too many Harry Potter books and came up with all these crazy flavors.
That's probably
we're just gonna go beans. There we go.
Yeah, that's probably the best example for sure. So you guys got any thoughts on there?
I can taste the vanilla.
You can taste it, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm almost getting like a nuttiness, like a walnut.
Okay.
And along with a vanilla walnut.
Definitely.
I'm not tasting the caramel nearly as much as I'm smelling it. The nose definitely brings out a bigger bouquet of that than the flavors in the glass.
Yeah, I'm getting a little butterscotch, but that might be because you said butterscotch earlier.
See?
Back to the yeah. What do you think about the finish? Does it linger? Does it
to me it does.
Yeah. Okay.
A little bit.
Lingers on the front of the tongue more than the back of the tongue.
Yeah.
I can definitely feel that palate up front. I was reading through the notes before we got started, and it says, be objective as possible. I tried the Whistle Pig Boss Haas.
Okay.
And I wasn't too much of a fan. I said, I'm going to go into this completely different, start over, and I wasn't a fan of the Boss Haas, and I really enjoy this one.
Yeah.
They're definitely different.
Yeah.
But I also didn't like whiskey when I tried the Boss Haas, so that
okay.
Kind of hard to compare.
You didn't like wine when you took it.
Right, I didn't like wine the first couple times I tried it either, so now I could have had a 99 or 100 point bottle and like, tastes kind of weird.
Yeah.
And today I would have loved the flavor, so I think my palate's definitely developing. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I definitely tasted in the front. It gets a little bit of a long flavor in your mouth, but there's no real feel of heat. Like even though it's this is a 94 proof bottle, but you don't get that feeling at all. Like I could probably sip this just pretty much every day in front of the fire, like just hanging out. This is pretty good. Well, awesome. To shift gears a little bit, we definitely, like I said, we're here to talk about business and talk about Sky Heating, and what's going on in the company. But before we do that, though, I want to hear about the fast cars. I want to hear about the fast cars, the plane, the whole transition there.
Yep.
How, why, where did that all come from?
So that kind of relates back to the business and what one of my initial goals was. When I first had the opportunity to come into the business and go into sales and start earning more, and then before purchasing, I really wanted to be able to buy a fast car every year, or at least switch up the fast car every year. That was like literally my sole goal. I bought a location in the Dalles, and at the time I went, wow, if I buy that location, I could buy a new fast car every year. Like that was all I cared about. And my transitions definitely changed from that to other things, but I've always wanted to experience them all. Just like whiskeys, you want to be able to try them all. You want to try all the different wines. Even if it's not a highly rated wine, you just want to try it because it may be unique, or like we got these wines that are amphora. They're actually made in clay earthen pots. Okay. There's only 1 or 2 places in the world that do wines like that. Is it the best wine? Absolutely not. But does it have one of the best stories? Absolutely. So cars are kind of the same way. People have asked me as I've gone from car to car, why'd you get rid of that one? I thought you loved it. Oh, I did. Why'd you get this one? Well, because it's different. But is it better? Oh, no, it's not better. It's faster. Wait, but well, it's faster or it's better. No, it's not better, but it's faster. Okay. So each one has its own unique differences. From my Lotus, which was my first kind of exotic car per se, only cost a little bit more than my Subaru at the time, but everybody looked at it and was like, what is this crazy little car driving down the road, this bright blue rocket that was noisy. It had air conditioning that literally condensed water on the sidewalls. The hardtop, you had to get out of the car, go to both sides, roll it up, put the pieces that hold it in place in the middle, then roll it up and stick it in the bag in the trunk. It was just a clunky little car, but one of the best handling, most fun cars ever. And then from that to Aston Martins, Lamborghinis, which was the dream car that I had on the wall as a kid, to a Ferrari, a Porsche, and then the quintessential McLaren with the doors of a billionaire. If you've ever watched the show Silicon Valley.
Oh, yeah.
Ever since seeing that, I know the guy's kind of a little off-putting, but I just love that billionaire doors. And if you get a chance, look for Trace Commas on YouTube, and you'll see the doors of a billionaire. I've actually got it behind Eric over here, the picture on the wall of Trace Commas, and that signifies $1 billion because there's 3 commas in a billion.
Okay.
So, love the cars, and it's hard to go 200 miles an hour. I mean, to find a car that can actually hit 200, let alone a place to ever do it, I haven't found it yet. Planes, you can go like 450, 500 miles an hour if you have a jet. So I don't have a jet by any means, but just got a Cirrus SR22 that cruises a little over 200 miles an hour and can go up to about 250 miles an hour. So that gets you there quick, especially when it's in a straight line. I mean, Tillamook is a 15-minute flight. Wow. So it doesn't take too long. It's like an hour-and-a-half long drive. Okay. Most times you're going around everything, but yeah, just always like going fast. Went skydiving a couple times, rock climbing, snowboarding down hills, road motorcycles, anything to just get that need for speed.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I know we're gonna have some of the audience members that are gonna want to check you out and find out what's next on the list for you for sure. So, talk to me a little bit about how that need for speed, how that transition, how that part of your life translates to your approach to business. The company has clearly taken off, from, ramping up originally. You guys just focused on the air conditioning. I believe you guys started out doing some construction related to now just primarily focused on the residential side of the business. And, obviously, Travis, you've been, in charge or leading the company since, was it 2014? So a little over 8 years.
Officially became president in 2014 when I bought out my father and became the majority owner, which was kind of a funny story about that too.
Love to hear it.
And but officially been kind of leading the company since 2009 when my father started stepping back.
Okay.
And the other owner became more of a manager, and I took more of the front and center role, leading the company and driving everything forward. And like in 2010, when I started to get further into the role, I said my dad limited the credit card. I had a $2,000 limit on it, and I bought software that was $1,995. My dad was like, "Oh, we can't have software. We're going to look expensive." And I'm like, "But it does a better job for the customer. It's faster. It's more efficient. Like, this is the way we got to go." No, we can't do that. So at the time, I went to our office manager and was like, "Hey, I need you to pay off my credit card because I only have $2,000, and I need to call up the place and pay for the software and then start installing it, and then you need to pay it off again so I have room." And so I remember going through that and getting the software. They're like, "Hey, why aren't we using the paper anymore?" "Oh, I instituted this on the software side." "Huh. You sure about that?" "Well, we've improved in these areas." Oh, okay. And I had to kind of work it in.
Okay.
And like when my business partner, once I became the president, I was like, "All right, we're pushing this throughout the whole company, not just my department." And he came to this whiteboard that he used to erase and then put back on and then erase and put back on, and we'd get jobs that get missed. And he comes in, the whiteboard's gone, and he's like, "Where'd it go?" And I was like, "It's in the trash." He's like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Your computer's loaded with the new software. That's what we start with today. This is my first initiative as owner and president." That's where he started working. He goes, "Okay." And he just kind of went about it, knowing that he only had about a year left, and he was already transitioning in the other guy. So he started transitioning him in. I went from there. But I think even speaking to the speed of which, I know when you came over, you mentioned meetings and how most places, I forget what you call it, death by meeting or
death by PowerPoint.
Death by PowerPoints, yeah.
The meetings to have meetings to discuss what happened in the first 2 meetings and nothing ever got implemented.
Yeah.
So I can say for Sky, and his need for speed, he's kind of bled that into the company too. We move very quickly, we make decisions quickly, we implement quickly, and we pivot quickly.
Okay.
So when we need to make a change, we discuss it efficiently, and then we walk out of the meeting and we implement it immediately.
For sure.
The only constant is change.
This is true.
Some people don't like that because they're used to just slow and steady, and we're not in a slow and steady race.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. They say if you're not adapting, you're dying, right? So,
especially with COVID too.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we had a plan a very calculated plan going into 2020, and then the pandemic hit. Actually, when the pandemic hit, Travis and I were in Louisiana, coaching another HVAC company down there, and we had to come back and figure out, you know, what we were going to do, how to pivot quickly, how to make things happen, and how to get through having people not wanting us in their homes when everything was first initial new and nobody knew what the pandemic was going to do and what the virus was going to do. Nobody wanted us in their homes, so we had to figure out how to work around that. So we quickly implemented, like our sales calls that typically take 2 hours, we started doing them through Zoom so we could still sell equipment, and just finding ways to work around working through a pandemic.
Yeah.
And since then we have doubled, so it's worked.
Yeah. No, speaking of doubling, I mean, obviously you've added on a number of divisions going, you know, adding the plumbing and the electrical, you know, it sounds like in a short period of time. So how large is the company now in the, you know, as far as just overall revenue for where you guys started prior to that to how you've, you know, grown it to date?
Yeah, so we were just already to surpass the $16 million a year mark on our trailing 12-month, and working up to $25 million by the end of the year. So we've still got aggressive growth ahead of us. We've got aggressive hiring plans. I mean, before the pandemic, we were 30-something people, and today we're more than double that.
Awesome.
And so we've brought in a lot more people, mainly, you know, bringing on additional plumbers, electricians, but additional office staff, management staff, warehouse staff, and then of course growing the core business of Sky Heating, which is the heating and air conditioning side. So additional service technicians, maintenance technicians, starting our own training division and training teams to bring those people up. And it used to be we'd just try and hire somebody with the skills and then teach them our ways, and now we're teaching the skills and our ways and finding that really is the better way to do it, because we can condense that training time and build a technician off the street and not have to worry about hoping that somebody applies with some skills and experience, because we'll train them all of that now. And we really faltered in that area prior. Whereas the pandemic, it's like, look, we're training those people. We've got our own training room that can train 20 plus people at a time, with live systems, live displays, virtual reality training, where it's actually virtual reality software. You can hold a device and turn a screwdriver in VR to undo things, or press a button and make the fan run on the system and test it all out, and it's amazing.
No, that is amazing, because I think just for myself, being someone that's outside of the, you know, skilled trade industry, you know, you don't really know that there's this much technology involved in the trades. Like, you know, from a novice like myself, I think of, okay, plumbing. You get a wrench, you know, you do the plumbing, and that's kind of it. Like, I might look in a book, I might see something on YouTube or something, and that's about as far as I go. But to know that there's so much more technology behind it and so much more, you know, training that's involved with it is pretty amazing. So outside of the training that you guys have, you know, implemented, what are some of the other keys to success that you guys would say have allowed you to grow and scale as quickly?
Culture.
Okay.
Our culture here, and the way that we approach new hires and onboarding people is a lot different than a lot of trade-based businesses. We buy all the tools for any of our technicians, plumbers, electricians. We provide everything that they need to do their job. It's not something that's super common. It's becoming a little bit more common as the progressive companies are starting to catch on. You had talked about smaller companies getting smaller and bigger companies getting bigger through this pandemic.
That's because they don't have the technology, the resources, and the people, and a lot of them are failing to make the investments. They're trying to stay as cheap as possible versus providing the resources needed. And most people don't know that the average mechanic that's working on your car, that's their own tools. Even jet mechanics that are working those big airplanes, that's their own tools.
Wow.
The plumber that comes to our house, that's their own tools. So a lot of these people are using their own tools, yet will gladly be like, oh, hey, you want to come answer phones? Let me give you a computer, a desk, a chair, pens and pencils. And I was like, why aren't we doing that for the people in the field? And they're like, oh, well, they just mistreat the tools. Okay, if they're going to mistreat the tools, what do you think they're going to do to take care of the client?
Yeah.
Maybe they're just not a good fit for the company, and the tool is actually the fastest way to find out if they're really going to be a good fit, because if they disrespect the tools that are provided, they're probably going to disrespect the customer, and that's probably not a good fit culturally for us.
Yeah. Wow.
I'd additionally like to say that I think that our relationships really help us through that. We've built relationships from our main suppliers, so the people that bring in equipment so that we get the choice pick of the inventory, have fast inventory, whether it be on the plumbing side, the electrical side, the heating and air conditioning side. We've got to have those relationships where so many people I know are like, oh, I'm gonna buy a little bit from this guy, a little bit from this guy, and they end up getting poor service from everybody. Versus us, yeah, we probably have more eggs in one basket than most, but it also means we get that front of the line service. I want the fast pass at Disneyland, and I want the same with my relationships. That comes into our banking relationships. Being able to get the money to buy the vehicles, to be able to buy the facilities, lease the facilities, bring in the equipment to grow the operating capital, to the vehicle people themselves, because vehicles are hard to come by. We've got relationships where people are saying, I haven't found a new vehicle in 6 months, and we're like, oh, we bought one yesterday. Oh, we bought one last month.
I did buy one yesterday, and I bought two last week.
But we our eggs in one basket. We buy from one person, we bank with one person, we buy from one vendor. And it keeps everything streamlined so that all of our processes are based on that. And they know that we're going to be tied into them, they're going to be tied into us, and it creates a win-win situation that helps propel us all.
Yeah.
And they know what our goals are. So, like, in banking or with our suppliers, those relationships include those discussions about where we want to take the company, so that we can be prepared on all fronts to make that happen and make it happen quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It ties right into how you guys operate. Just smooth, efficient, straightforward, and just go get it done. So, yeah, for sure. Okay.
Get it done and have fun.
And have fun.
We do have fun.
We have Pac-Man competitions going on right now. We were telling Eric before the podcast started that we started out and I was getting like 15,000 points, whether it be Galaga or Dig Dug or Pac-Man. Somebody got like 25,000, then 32, then 35, and then people came in and were like, it's over. Somebody got 53 or 54,000 at Pac-Man. That's about time to reset the high scores and start over. But I think we're going to do a Dig Dug competition next, since one of our guys scored 184,000 in Galaga, and that's just never going to be beat.
Yeah.
He also used to be a pro player at this, I guess, at tournaments, so
wow.
He's got a leg up.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's incredible. I love all those old Atari games. I still actually have my Atari. Yeah. So yeah.
It's fun. It's fun, and it changes the culture for the employees. Where it's not just, they're not just coming to work for a paycheck. They're coming to work for a bigger vision and a company that's going to take care of them and make sure that they have the tools that they need, the training they need. Something that we've heard in our industry over the years is, well, what if I train them and they leave? But what if you don't and they stay?
Preach. Yeah, for real. That is the God's honest truth. Because it's hard to keep good people, but they stay when you take care of them.
Yeah.
And man, if you have a bad egg on the squad, that also can deteriorate a culture really, really fast.
Oh yeah.
When the coworkers know that person isn't good, but they're still here, it just brings the whole level of what's acceptable way down. So I definitely feel you on that for sure. So what do you guys think are some of the where do you think the industry's headed? In the next like 3 to 5 years, what do you think are some of the big challenges or direction that the industry's headed?
So speaking specifically to heating, air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, just the home service trades, we're going through a major conglomeration right now.
Yes.
Most people don't know this, but there, as far as companies over $10 million in the Portland metro market, there's us and one other that are privately owned.
Wow.
Almost every major player that you see driving around that has a lot of trucks, they are owned by some private equity firm, some capitalization firm. So it's coming, for good or for bad. Some of the firms do a great job of taking care of people, bringing in better benefits, better training, recruiting, all sorts of fun pieces. Other ones shoot for profit above all else and forget about the rest of that culture that originally brought it there. And in our industry, we used to call it the Blue Dot era, which was a major consolidator back in the 2000s. And they shot for profits over people and failed. And this time around, a lot of the groups are shooting for people over profits and succeeding and growing. So no matter what, the big right now are getting bigger and the small are getting smaller, because those big companies that were 15 million, many of them are 250 to 500 million in the southwest areas where we have that Sun Belt. It's starting to come to Oregon and the Pacific Northwest, but throughout the country, there's East Coast conglomerations, there's Sunshine conglomerations, there's Midwest conglomerations, and there's really, I think that I know of only one that's kind of majorly based out of or headquartered in the Pacific Northwest, and they own, I think, 4 different companies in our market.
Wow.
So people often forget that, yeah, you see all those trades-based companies driving by, there's not people like Heather and myself that are there that own them, there's managers that run them. Some of them are the former owners. In many cases, the owners will leave and ride off in the sunset. But we are still, to this day, independently owned and operated, and one of the few that are like that. So that's definitely coming down the road. I also see more digital and online sales. We just started our new online store, which, speaking of technology forward, we're a little behind as far as most industries would say, but for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, we're selling filters online, memberships online. We can even go so far as to sell a full heating and air conditioning system online today. We have the technology to do that. The stores are all built out. We're just not sure how to sell with that model today, where we can't build the same value. And because it's not so universal. Each home is its individual piece. It's not like Arizona, where every unit sits up in the attic or every unit sitting on the rooftop. You make these basic reconnections and you're good to go. We have upflows, downflows, horizontals, attics, basements, crawl spaces, garages, closets, and there isn't really a one-size-fits-all solution like there is in many other areas of the country due to construction. So I think our market's going to be a lot harder to cross that gap, but it's going to happen.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I'm in a new construction neighborhood, and I drive by the garages every day, and I look in there and I see somebody's got their AC and heating thing on the roof in the garage, and mine's in a closet, and like, I can't imagine trying to manage all that stuff. So from a virtual sales standpoint, so that's going to be incredible. I can see that being a challenge. So you mentioned the a lot of the VC or equity money that's coming into the market. Can you talk a little bit about like the difference or between building value in a company versus just really focusing on the net income or bottom line? Like I understand there's a difference, but can you shed some light and discuss that a little bit further?
Yeah, so I'd say this is one of the biggest things I think I learned, like the key point, and I know when Heather and I had a chance to kind of discuss the concept, she was like, oh, so when you're that individual owner, and as I brought it back to the beginning and I said, okay, I wanted to buy cars. That was my goal. It wasn't other things like it is today. But I was so focused on the net profit of the company that you end up sacrificing a lot of things to focus on the net profit. And you think that, well, values are based on the net profit. So if I just raise the net profit, the value will go up. And it's the exact opposite. And the example I use is if you get a string. I'll kind of do this for the camera in case anybody's watching. But if I had a string right here on the desk, and I'm at the end of the string over here, and I start pushing it, what happens to the string? It just bundles up.
Yeah.
That's net profit. You drive up net profit, value doesn't really go. Because you haven't brought in those capital assets, you haven't brought in the vehicles, you haven't trained your people, you haven't invested in anything. On the other end of the string is the company value. And now net profit's sitting here. But as you build the value, the string's only so long, it's just going to keep pulling up the net profit of the company. And it sounds so simple. It's like, okay, well, duh, build the value, the net profit comes up, or net profit goes up, you build the value, but it's not, because as you build that value, or build that net profit, it's not going to build nearly as fast. And the fastest way to build it is to drag it up, and as soon as you flip that equation to building value, it suddenly changes, because now all of a sudden we have new vehicles, we have a newer office, we have new desks, we have the machines that are, the arcade machines, the little benefits, we have the training for people. Well, we got to spend the money, which would have dropped net profit. We got to spend the money so that we get those dividends and returns long term. And if you look at that and go, okay, every time I buy a vehicle, that builds the value of the company. Every time I do training that raises this number, it builds the value of the company. If that's all we focus on, everything else will fall in line and get pulled up with it or brought up with it. And once we change that equation, everything took off. Revenue shot up, profit shot up, employee satisfaction shot up, and we're able to afford nicer, better vehicles for the team, nicer, better tools, more training, which empowers them. We're able to pay more to recruit better, and everybody wins from it, while the customers get a better installed system with better customer satisfaction, with better interactions, faster interactions. I was at one of my commercial properties yesterday and talking to the appraiser out there, and he said, oh, plumbing, electrical, heating, man, you guys are what, like a month out for new air conditioner? I was like, I can actually put one in your house tomorrow. He goes, what? And I go, we've invested in our teams, we have the inventory systems in place, to know what's in stock, so we have it faster than our suppliers will, than anybody else in town will. I have delivery drivers that can bring it out to people's houses. I have salespeople that are ready to go. And we have installers that we pay to make sure that we can install that system as soon as possible. Now, middle of summer, that's not going to happen. So if you're in the Portland market, don't call me in the middle of summer saying, hey, Travis, you said you can get there next day. But we try to be there as fast as possible in the summer while other people are booked out a month. We're booked out a couple of days to a week. And I used to be so proud to have this backlog, and I'm a month out. And a friend finally said, Travis, what happens every summer? And I go, it gets hot. Because how long have you been doing this for? And I was like, oh, about 20 years. And he goes, you mean to tell me you're so fucking stupid that after 20 years you haven't figured out it gets hot in the summer and you need to staff for that? No. I've always beat my chest because we were so far booked out because we're that good.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if you're that good, you'd be able to figure out how to staff. Well, now we have the resources and ability to do that and to staff better and to make it so that we can be training in the off season to keep those people around so that we're employing. We hired 3 people last month, 3 great installers, and it's because other companies couldn't keep them busy and we could.
No. Yeah.
So being able to build that value gets us the extra installers because we had the extra vehicles, because we pay for the tools, and it's just because. And if all I shot was for net profit, I might raise my price 5% just to add it to the bottom line, and that gives you nothing down the road.
For sure.
You're taking the money out, so you got to keep investing there.
For sure. Well, speaking of, having the talent, hiring additional people, talk a little bit about, because, I talk to others in the industry, and, one of the things that's the common thing across the, the trade spectrum is there's not enough skilled trade labor. So can you guys talk a little bit about, either, what can we do to change that to, get more people into the skilled trade, area, or like shed some light on what some of your guys' thoughts are, just being so influential in the space.
Well, part of it goes back to when we couldn't find the people, and we hear it all over the country from our friends of ours, but we built a training room, so we're training them from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
We're very involved in the apprenticeship program. Our electrical manager is actually an instructor for the electrical apprenticeship program. So
one of our plumbers sits on the board for the plumbing program.
Adding those 2 trades is a little bit more regulated than HVAC because they have to go through an accredited 4-year apprenticeship program. There isn't an apprenticeship program for HVAC, so we created one with our live training room. We can bring people in, move people up. That's just one of the things that we've done. We've also gained a reputation for the relationships we've built in our industry and with the suppliers and with our employees. So our employees go to the supply house and they see that we're buying all their tools. Other plumbers, electricians, they see that.
Yeah.
And we've been able to add from that as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you guys' thoughts on just education in general? Because, I've been out of school for a number of years now, but even then, like, no one was really talking to me about going into the skilled trades. And, as, from the profession I've chosen, I know what, a lot of people in the skilled trades can make. Like, they can make some really good money, especially compared to some of the people I know that have their degrees and, whatnot, that, are complaining about, college, tuitions and different things and not making the income that they would, have hoped to make. What are some of the things that you might say to someone that is, considering or even potentially, thinking about getting into the skilled trades? Like, if you had the chance to speak directly to them right now, what are some of the things you might tell them to, encourage them to get into the skilled trade, or, some things to think about?
So I remember driving past a billboard maybe a month ago, a couple weeks ago. I look up at this beautiful billboard advertising, come get a degree in this program, and average starting wages are like $17.86 per hour. And I'm like, wait, you're trying to sell somebody on a $100,000 degree or whatever it costs to get a starting wage at $17.86? When one of my apprentices starting out, they get a take-home vehicle pretty soon, so they don't have to pay for the gas. They get their tools paid for, their schooling is paid for, and they have guaranteed raises built in and they're making money. Now, if you look at the time value of money, and you have 2 people, let's say they both start out at 20, and they're both going, I don't know what I want to do after high school. If you know what you want to do, great, go for it. But if you don't, explore some of these options, because you get to work at different places every day. You're working with different people every day, or if you want, you can work on a commercial job site where it is more the same people. You can choose those different options. But on top of that, if they start out at 20 years old, one person's making $16, $17 an hour. Let's just say they start their degree for this job. By the time they're 24, they've racked up $100,000 in debt. Either they're working and going to school and trying to pay off the school to probably not get very far ahead, just to get done with school to get that $40,000 or $50,000 a year job. Meanwhile, the apprentice is making over $100,000 a year by the time he gets done with his 4-year schooling, and has the ability to keep going up from there, and has the vehicle, and has zero debt. Now you take that $100,000, instead of paying 7% interest on it and invest it at 8%, that's a huge difference. Now you also take that, this person's maybe making 50 grand out of college, this person's making 100 grand in the trades, and you start saying, let's live at this lifestyle. Well, that's huge. Or you can go out and buy the big lifted truck and get the house, but I've seen people do it both ways.
For sure, for sure.
I think just letting younger people know there's more than one option. You don't have to go to college as your only option.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, why do you think it's not discussed as much? I mean, because there's a ton of people in the trades, but it just doesn't seem to be getting discussed at the same level as go to college. Yeah.
I think the trades have had a little bit of a stigma. And at the same time, last I heard, plumbing is the most trained trade coming out of the prison system. So you almost automatically say, well, I'm putting myself with this, and it brings down the overall morale. And that's where, when we have these training rooms and we have technicians that are driving a Mercedes Sprinter vehicle with paid-for tools that are well-spoken because they've been trained in customer service, that are in uniforms, that have automatic dispatching with text message notifications, it helps bring up the level of the industry. And then it starts bringing more people in, and they're like, wait a minute, if I can be a professional plumber, like Sky Heating, AC Plumbing, Electrical has, or one of those excellent electricians, hey, I might like doing that. That is more of a desk job, but still get myself dirty when need be. I'll jump in when needed. But it allows you to really keep yourself busy, keep your mind busy. You've got a little bit of drive time to listen to audiobooks. I mean, if you maximize that, you've got an hour and a half a day of drive time for audiobooks to work on yourself, work on investing. You get training every single week. We train Monday through Friday, an hour a day per team. So everybody in this company gets between 30 minutes and an hour of training every single week, on top of all the larger trainings that we do, the recurrent trainings. The next Tuesday we do a 4-hour training on duct design. And we'll train everybody from our CFO Heather to people that answer the phones how to design ductwork. So they're all brought into these trainings and understand the workings of the company, to business trainings, and we put together an investments class, a financial kind of well-being class to teach them how to save up, how to have 3 to 6 months of reserves, the 50-30-20 rule, or as we say, the 50-20-30 rule. Because we want to have them 50% on needs, 20% on savings, then whatever's left over, maybe it's 30% on wants. So there's a ton of potential for somebody that really maximizes that. And we've got people here that are in their early 20s, dual income, no kids, and they're making a great living wage, beyond living wage, more than double the median income in Portland, and they're in their 20s because both husband and wife went into the trades. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Kudos to you guys for doing that, because I mean, even I'm in banking, and even in banking, there's still not a lot of education on how to take care of yourself personally. We train all day about how to take care of other people's business and financials, but there's really not a lot to teach you about how to take care of yourself. And so a lot of that, and I can definitely speak for other industries, there's probably not a lot of education on that. So good job on that for you guys to help a lot of these younger people that they might have got their first checking account when they started working here with you guys, so that's pretty awesome to be able to do that.
They don't teach us stuff in school anymore, and it's so important. I mean, these guys that are making, and gals that are making really good wages with us don't know what to do with the money. So they either end up living paycheck to paycheck, or they end up learning how to invest their money. But one of my biggest dreams for my career was to have our employees feel financially free, where they're not strapped to, having to show up for work if something goes wrong, where they have some reserves, where they have some investments or, retirement accounts so that they are able to retire.
For sure.
Something like 70% of Americans do not have $1,000 saved for an emergency. It also goes back to their job performance. If you're going out to a house and you're going to a customer that's one of those 70% of Americans that doesn't have $1,000 saved for emergency and their water heater is puking all over the floor, or they have no heat in their house on a 30-degree night, you've got to be able to talk to them about how we can get these things taken care of and get their system back up and running and know their plight while taking care of all their needs at the same time. And it makes you be more empathetic to what others are going through, but also saying, all right, I want to make sure I'm not in that situation too.
Yeah.
So that's why we teach them just the basics of how to save, how to get to that point, how to set a budget, then how to invest, then places to invest. Never give financial advice to them. We can maybe do some of that on the podcast because it's free and not paid for. But
For sure. Well, outside of the business, would you guys, be okay with sharing some of the, things that you guys are using to, help, build wealth for yourself, or just kind of help build wealth for the, employees? Obviously, you mentioned not wanting them to, live paycheck to paycheck, but what are some of the tools or things that you guys might be able to share with some of the listeners?
So we originally wanted to get into real estate, and I was always like, okay, take the earnings from the company, invest into more stable real estate, and then push it kind of downstream, have some very stable assets like whole life insurance, coupled with retirement plans being maximized for tax advantages, the whole life because it has bankruptcy protection, retirement accounts bankruptcy protection, company, very high growth, lots of money, high capitalization rate, but certainly the most volatile of all. So being able to shed some of those things off. I know some people that have $100 million companies and they went for the gold in that. I know others that said, I'd rather have a little bit less risk aversion. I made it to this point, now let's start shedding off. I think finding that happy medium for each person is what's important. Because I've got friends like, until your company's worth $250 million, that should be your sole focus. Well, not everybody wants a $250 million company. Others would rather have that stable, relaxed. I'm by no means a Dave Ramsey fan that's like, pay for everything, never have to worry again in your life because it's paid for. I'd like a little more than that. But I feel this is a fairly balanced approach. So I originally talked to Heather and was like, hey, we should buy some real estate together. I'd really like your input and advice on this. I'd like you to partner with me on some of these things. And so we originally looked at a 4-unit complex in Ontario, Oregon. And it was, $200,000. We offered them like $192,000.
Yeah.
And they're like $196, and we're sitting there going, "Oh, it's $4,000! Oh my gosh!"
We were like, "No,
no, we're not going to do this." It's
I'm glad we didn't.
So at the time, I was listening to a lot of Grant Cardone, 10x your life, baby, 10x that shit. And we were looking, and I was like, "Let's go bigger." And she's like, "Hey, what about this one in Madras? It's a 12-unit." I'm like, "It's like 3 times the size." You know what? Good idea. Let's just go take a look. So we go with our broker. Mm-hmm. We look at the building. We visualized, we're big fans of visualization, we visualized what we wanted, and we get to this place and it's a shithole.
We had to like break in to see it.
Yeah, she literally had to crawl in through a window. We had permission, but we didn't have keys. We had permission but no keys. So she crawls in through the window because she's the smallest, comes around, unlocks the door. And we go inside and we're like, well, I mean, it's 3 times as much and it's 3 times the units, but it's closer and it's bigger. And hey, Grant Cardone says nothing less than 10 doors, this is 12. Okay. And our broker's like, I'm going to call this guy, see if he has anything else. And it's our first time ever, like, besides buying this building that we're in, buying real estate. Like,
well, we actually had looked at the place in Yakima, too.
Oh, yeah, we looked at a whorehouse.
We looked at a whorehouse in Yakima.
Oh, God.
Yeah, when you ask, like, former whorehouse or operating, you're like, yeah.
Was it?
Pretty sure it's still operating as such, but it originally started out as a whorehouse.
Wow.
Walking through it, I'm like, this looks like a whorehouse. And the property manager was like, well, yeah, it was at one point. And I was like,
wow.
okay.
Wow.
Looked great on paper.
Yeah.
It's actually, what's funny is it's still for sale to this day.
Wow.
I was actually looking
This
at
is like 4 years ago.
So the broker calls the other broker and is like, hey, this thing, it's not really what we're looking for. Do you have anything else? And the guy goes, yeah, I got another one that's coming online. But he's selling this one first. Let's go take a look. It's a 30-minute drive to Prineville. So we drive to Prineville. We look at the building, and Heather and I go like this. That's the one we want. We go, we want it. Right up the offer. And he goes, well, they have to sell that one first. And we're like, fuck it, sell us that one then.
We'll take both of them.
And he's like, it's 35 units. It's a couple $1 million. And I'm like, well, that's exactly 10 times the original we looked at. So I think we kind of 10x'd it. And she's like, how are we going to do this? And I'm like, I don't know if I can find somebody. I'm like, just put in the offer. I'll sign my name to it. I don't care. I'll figure it out. So we call up a mutual friend that had told me, oh yeah, I've got some money I want to put into real estate. Call him up, I'm like, hey, you want to come do a presentation on real estate at our office? Heather and I kind of put together this little pro forma, bring your wife and a checkbook. And he's like, okay. He and his wife come in, 10 minutes in, he's like, where do I sign up? How much do you want? And I was like, well, I've already got this much carved out for me. Heather wants this much, but you can buy the remaining pieces of this. We just want somebody else to help diversify the risk. He's in insurance, she's financials. I've been building the banking relationships, and we just built this team and put it together and closed on 35 apartment units as our first deal. Wow. After starting out looking at 4 and getting turned down over $4,000.
But it was meant to be.
That's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worked out really well. And then we went on to, well, both Travis and I spend a lot of time looking at real estate too, commercial and multifamily.
Yeah, so now we've got 3 warehouses totaling almost 40,000 square feet, 3 apartment complexes totaling 51 units, and getting ready to do our first cash out refis to start rolling the money into more apartment buildings, more apartment complexes. And that's what Grant Cardone also talked about. Sell the building to yourself.
Yeah.
Cash out refi it, get a B-lock or a building equity line so that you can just keep going down the road and just kind of globbering up this real estate. Play this little game called Holes on my phone. You have this little tiny hole and you have to swallow up the people and the lights, and then the hole gets bigger. It's like that's what real estate. You start swallowing up all the buildings out there as you can. And there's just so much money to be made on that side. It's certainly a little bit more stable, a little bit more long-term, but I mean, we're looking at almost a 3x return in 3 years on the real estate.
Wow.
And we have about the same amount of cash as when we started, and some people invest just for the cash flow. We really invested for the value side versus the cash flow. If it doesn't make $1, we're all fine with it so long as it grows in value. And we're like, man, if we can double our money in 5 years, we all just kicked ass.
For sure.
And now 3 years in, we're like, well, we probably at least tripled it. It's not bad. We should try this again.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just dumb luck. I know the market certainly has gone up more than normal, so I don't want to negate just the natural benefits we've seen through the just money printer go brrr from the federal government and all.
For sure.
There's definitely some great strategies on getting those things working, whether it be commercial warehouses or apartments.
Awesome. Well, we're kind of coming up on our time, but I did have 2 last questions that I wanted to ask. And first is, if you guys could go back, to the beginning or 10 years, whatever, could talk to the younger yous, what advice would you guys have for someone in your industry that might be looking to get started now?
I'll tackle this one first and let you jump in, because mine goes back to the original string example.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I was building the net income of the company and just treading water. We switched it to building value, and the company has just taken off, skyrocketed, added people, is still growing at insane rates. So we finished January up at only 54% after finishing December at 141%, and November at like 86%, and October at 123%, and we're now on track for almost 100% in February for growth. But it's because we switched to building the value.
Okay, awesome.
The other thing I would say is don't get into new construction.
Mm.
You become the builder's financee, and you wait for your money, and sometimes you don't get paid, and it's usually the most undercut price where you're going to strain to make a profit.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, awesome. And the second question on that list, what do you guys think of this? What did you think of the Whistle Pig here? And I
liked it.
Yeah. Okay. So if you had to scale it on a 1 to 10 of I would put this in my cabinet, and 1 being pour that out, where would you guys probably rate this for yourself?
I would give it a solid 9 personally.
Okay.
It was definitely exceeded my expectations.
I would too. I liked it.
It was for, 50, or the proof is almost 100?
Yeah, it's 94. 94.
Okay.
Yeah, 94.
So for 94 proof, I was quite amazed at how smooth that was, even before the ice started to melt a little bit. I know.
Oh, hey, hold on.
No, it's like, I saw
this is not 94 proof. This is 114.7 because it's a single barrel.
And that's why I've been getting my words mixed up, probably.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
For that high of a proof, you would never know.
No, I would
never know.
I would have thought that was like a liqueur, not a rye whiskey. And the ryes that I've had in the past have always had a little bit of a distinct bite, and that's what I was telling you. I was like, they're a little sharp for me. this doesn't taste like the standard rye with that kind of sharpness or bite to it. It's really smooth and complex, and finishes. But the nose alone is like, it's just worth the smell.
Yeah, yeah. No,
this is
definitely
better than Jimmy John's with their free smells.
For sure, for sure. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on the podcast. I know that you brought a special little treat here, so we will taste this. We won't go through the whole show, that we normally do, but we got a little Old Forester birthday bourbon as a special treat for Mr. Travis here. And if I can get this open, they packaged this in here real tight.
Put the tasting notes in the YouTube description or something like that.
Oh, definitely. But let me give you guys a little some of this and say thank you for being on the show. Alright. Yeah.
We should probably figure out the proof of this before going too far too. I don't even know.
Yeah, what do we got here? This is a 98 proof, and I read the label, so just so you know, it is 98 proof. Well, cheers, guys. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that'll conclude our episode. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Catch us on the next time.
That's really sweet.